topics that's come up for us, and people have mentioned to both of us that would be interesting for us to cover, especially since we're a male and female, is this idea of the masculine and the feminine. Primarily, obviously in the workplace, that's kind of the area that we're talking about, but also how that kind of moves into everyday life. So how we are, personally and professionally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because we come with these sort of very different traits, right? The masculine and the feminine, and how we use them in a combination, basically, to be the best versions of ourselves or not.
Should we start by defining like what the masculine traits are and what the feminine traits are? Because we're not talking about like being a man or being a woman. We're actually talking about traits that anybody could embody in some way, right?
Exactly, yeah. So for me, masculine traits are to be very sort of assertive, goal-oriented, strategic, firm, sort of, powerful, go-getter. That is masculine for me. What is it for you?
Yeah, masculine is definitely those things, especially like the go-getter, the assertive side. Those things really, resonate when you say masculine. Also, this kind of idea of like, being, this is interesting because I think fearlessness kind of covers both, right? But this idea of like we're going to, achieve something, this team spirit kind of thing, all that kind of stuff comes on the masculine side for me.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
For me, the team spirit is a lot more like a feminine thing, because, in the team spirit lies inclusiveness, to take care and to sort of nurture a team and to create that sort of common understanding and, So for me, that is different. Or do you see teamwork as something, from sports side, for example,
Yeah, so maybe my understanding of team comes from there. And then, of course, when I think of leadership teams, we've had discussions, and I think it's important probably to dive into this idea of diversity again at another time. But I do definitely feel like this kind of team creation often feels like a masculine activity, but maybe that's exactly not it. Maybe it is more what you're saying. To be an effective team. You have some statistics on teams, don't you? And
but I have statistics on female leadership that it actually proven today that companies usually present a lot better financial results when led by women.
Was that like women's health study?
Actually, it's one of the ones that Nordea did.
Okay, yeah.
Amongst, I think, 11,000 companies or so.
All right.
But also McKinsey has done studies around the female leadership.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But the main thing I would say is that, companies that have diverse leadership teams and diverse board of directorships, that is sort of affecting the company in a positive way.
Interesting. Because when you think of like a sports team, often, it's not that everyone's the same. Obviously, people have different talents and, could come from, different cultural backgrounds and everything. But in general, they're more like they're physically similar. Let's say if they're on a sports team, they have a kind of a fitness level that's the same. They have a goal, that they're driving towards, this idea of excellence and performance and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes in workplaces, maybe there's like a lack of this drive for performance in some of the team members. And I guess that could affect a team very strongly, couldn't it?
Yeah, of course it could.
Yeah.
Of course it could. But I think that when you're painting that picture of this team, for me, you get a group of people that are very similar to each other. And for me, when a group of people are too similar, you don't get the best out of the team.
Right.
Because then you have a group of yes-sayers.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely, yeah.
So,
yes, I agree.
Yes, you agree. So I think that, that again, the diversity in the team is a better thing to have. But it takes more from the leader to lead that team. But that acquires both the feminine and masculine traits, from my perspective.
Yeah.
Because when you combine being goal-oriented, motivated, strategic, assertive, etc., together with actually listen nurture, create consensus, motivation, that creates results in the end. So it's a balance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, actually, you know, when you mentioned the sports team, I mean, I personally, even though I, you know, maybe look like I'm sporty or whatever, I'm not.
Oh, you're pretty sporty. You're going to run an ultra marathon.
Run an ultra marathon. That's true.
this week.
But those are more individual like things. Because my team like reference is always like these TV programs that I grew up with, like the A Team and, you know, lots of other, you know, type things where they're assembling a group. So, or a CSI, all those kind of things where they have like, you know, a leader, then a tech expert, then a person who's good at sales and a person who's good at making contact with people. And I always find that that's a really interesting way to assemble a team. You're trying to find like the best person, or like, you know, Ocean's 11 or whatever, any of these kinds of things. And I really love that idea because it is based on diversity, you know, and kind of it's fun to see different personalities combine. And often, obviously, you know, these things have been maybe traditionally led by men in the past. Now, although when you watch a program, it could easily be a woman that's the leader, which is more interesting. And also, like, usually then the badass nowadays is a woman. That is like wicked good at, like, you know, karate and all this kind of stuff, right? That's always the thing now, which is fun. This is fun. My teenage boys have a problem with that, as well as Andrew Tate, but the rest of us really think it's fun in general, I think. Yeah, there's an idea of like diversity in a team using different strengths. That's what I like. I agree.
Yeah. Exactly. But to lead a team like that, you also need to balance your own traits, right? So because one person would want to be led in one way and another in a different way. And how to create that dynamic is a balance between the masculine and the feminine.
Right. And so what kind of leader then, what kind of qualities does a leader who's successful do in those kind of things? What kind of qualities do they possess or show? Like, so.
That can balance?
Yeah.
I think, you know, to be someone who actually try to develop themselves all the time, right? So you accept feedback, you listen to feedback, you learn from it, you grow from it, because as a leader, you never stop learning, right? So that's one thing, and to be able to again balance those sort of harder qualities together with the softer ones, and know when to do either or, basically. Yeah.
Two questions that come up for me. One is this idea of like building relationships, and the other is trust. And how do you work on a diverse team like that with those two qualities? So they seem to be like key to getting any kind of high performance: trust, and then building relationships and maintaining and fixing relationships as well.
So I know that we've been talking about, you know, creating trust is based a lot on vulnerability, right? Which is often seen as a very female trait. But trust can also be trusting in someone who is very distinct and very clear about the visions and the goals, very competent and very sort of self-confident, right? Which is maybe more masculine. So again, it is a combination of the both, I think.
Yeah.
For me, vulnerability would always be the foundation, but that's me as a person.
Yeah.
But for someone else, just to believe in someone's goals creates the trust they need to follow through.
In terms of like masculine and feminine, I guess you would consider vulnerability a feminine or female quality, more or less.
Don't you?
Yeah, I definitely would. And how do we cultivate that in our leadership? Like, because it's also a thing that, I mean, you need trust to be vulnerable, but you trust people who are vulnerable, right? So both are true. Like, if you don't feel like someone's gonna have your back, it's very hard to be vulnerable with them, you know, right?
Right. Yeah. But maybe if you would be vulnerable from the beginning, the trust would be created.
Yeah. So on a leadership team, how often is it like that? That's my question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I have experience from both the leadership teams where you could be very vulnerable and where trust was created, and from the leadership team where vulnerability was not on the agenda. And trust was never there.
No. So I have a question. Can vision and goal, like, so these masculine traits, let's say, can they supersede trust and vulnerability? So for instance, if we say, let's not worry about how you feel, let's go for this thing and we'll work out the feelings later. Can that be enough to get us to the goal? Or do we need these qualities? And at what point do we need them? Like, so in other words, if you just say it, it sounds like, yeah, if we all go in that direction, we'll be fine. And another thing is to know that the road there is difficult, right? It's never going to be an easy, smooth path to that one big, giant, audacious goal, right? So to get there, then you need trust and vulnerability. Otherwise, people start dropping off. That's what I think, right? If you're on the way. Yeah, I guess I answered my own question.
I think you did.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah. I would never follow someone who just says that, okay, we're going to trust me, if trust weren't created from the beginning. And for me, trust is created one way, and for someone else, trust is created in a different way.
Oh, what are the main top 3 ways to generate or to create trust?
I think that vulnerability, again, then, is one way to open up and be vulnerable and honest and all that stuff. I think that competence, someone who shows competence and self-confidence in the competence is another way. So a third one?
You have to have 3.
You have to be super, super inspiring. I mean,
all right, yeah.
It's like, I just want to follow this person. There's something else. It's a different energy. And now we're on I must be nice, but a different energy.
Yeah.
When you just get sucked in and just, okay, this is it. Let's go.
Right. And do you think then that would build trust, or is it just like being vulnerable? Is it like giving yourself? I find it really hard to like follow someone regardless of how, let's say, charismatic they might pretend to be or something.
Might pretend to be or are?
I don't know. Like, yeah,
That's 2 different things, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, to follow is a big thing. But I suppose I have that kind of like loner mentality a bit, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it would be a lot. You'd have to do a lot, right? To be a lot of things proven. And usually it would be through, if I see that person, rather than having a big vision, if I see them supporting other people, that's what would inspire me. Yeah. So if I see that person is helping to inspire other people, that might be an inspiration to me. But otherwise, I would find it very hard. Just if they said something that sounded great or whatever, I'd be like, all right, show me, right?
How much do you think that, our masculine or feminine traits are affected by, us growing up and society and stuff like that?
There's a lot of talk about nature and nurture. I definitely think that there are certain qualities that are built into us biologically, for sure. And they come physically, obviously, in size and those kind of things. And then with that, you get reinforcement through time. I was always like the guy who had to help carry the tables or move the thing or whatever it was, push the car, whatever those things, because I was big. So then that was like self-fulfilling. So then those kind of like physicality male traits were kind of imposed on me, but because of my biology, right? Then there are the things that it seem natural that I don't know. I mean, I have 2 boys, right? I don't feel like I've been judgmental in terms of like, let's say, simple things like what color they prefer or what they play with or any of that kind of thing. And yet, they've gravitated towards more, let's say, traditionally boyish things. I definitely think there's a societal, biological side. Both. But I also think it's important to embrace, if you're very masculine, to embrace the feminine side, especially because if you come across as this kind of, let's say, if you take that to the extreme, this kind of brash, male, masculine type of character, I find that person very unappealing, you know, and not someone that I could ever find charismatic or interesting. I like people who care about other people, who have you know, a drive towards something, but also want to take people with them and empower the other people to do well. Right. Yeah. Those are the things that I see in real leaders. You know. But also, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of like, you know, come on, man, let's do this. You know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that's when
the team spirit comes again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're good at that too, right? So it's a masculine trait that you show, right? You're like, yeah, you know, do that. We can do that. And so I think that, yeah. How about you?
I think it's interesting. I think that, you know, that we're affected a lot about, you know, how we grew up. For example, I had a tough period in life when I was a kid, and I think that a lot of my coping strategies tended to go into, you know, encouraging the masculine side or the masculine traits. I would say masculine side. You know, but you know, to be quite, you know, goal oriented and I can do it by myself, and you know. But I also think that, you know, the older that we get and the more balance we seek and what, you know, we learn a lot of different things. So those qualities, you know, today I feel a lot more, you know, balanced, but I had to be or use some masculine traits over quite some years, I think, to sort of survive.
And do you feel that they're integrated into your life in a good way, or are they kind of things that have been not so great for you?
It's an interesting question, and I'm not sure how deep we're going to dig into that today. However, I think that a lot of the masculine traits that I have had and nurtured over the years have gotten me into a lot of situations that has been extremely good and that I've learned a lot from, and where I've gained extremely much from as well. But I also set some parts aside for a while, which I don't anymore, and that's also nice. So again, I think, you know, when finding out what the balance can be and how that sort of resonates within you, that's for the greater good. And the more you can accept that you have both sides, as a leader, as a person, in all the relationships that you have, that's it.
You know, before we just conclude, I do feel like we're at the edge of vulnerability there.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You feel that.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah.
Thanks for like at least going that far for us right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.